published, 1909 EDT, the 2nd of May 2018, updated, 2000 hours EDT, the 2nd of May 2018. Ministers were under further pressure last night to overturn the policy on Afghan interpreters as it emerged scores faced being kicked out of Britain. More than 150 translators given sanctuary after risking their lives for UK troops said they have been left in limbo because of rules that could see them leave as soon as next year. In a letter to ministers, they said the Home Office had been unable to confirm they will be able to stay after their 5-year visas run out. The interpreters, who all served on the front line in Helmand Province for more than a year, have to apply to remain in Britain in the same way as migrants who crossed the Channel illegally. This means they also have to pay almost £2,400 each to stay, a sum they say is unaffordable for many. Mohammed Hayes Walizada served in battle as a translator with the British Army from 2009 until 2013. Some have also been told it is too late for them to bring their family over under the same scheme. It means they face the choice of either returning to the war-ravaged nation, where they fear they could be hunted down by the Taliban for acting as spies, or living without their wives and children. They have written to Home Secretary Sajid Javid and Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson calling for an end to the policy. In a letter seen by the Mail, the interpreters said their future hangs in the balance as they are unable to find permanent work because they do not know if they will be kicked out within months. It says, "We took great risk because we believed in the integrity of the British Army, only to be let down by politicians who see us a number and not as people. We implore you to end your shameful and indefensible policy." The Defence Secretary last night urged the Home Office to waive the fees faced by Afghan interpreters and to make the process as easy as possible. The 27-year-old married father, pictured with his daughter Sineen, said that, as an unarmed civilian, his life was constantly at risk as he interpreted Taliban communications. Several hundred interpreters, including some family members, have been allowed into the UK over the past 4 years under a relocation scheme. The Ministry of Defence said this policy and a further intimidation policy, which has not seen a single interpreter allowed to come to the UK are in place because of the debt of gratitude we owe for their service. But the interpreters were handed only a 5-year residency permit, and so, when that expires, will have to apply for indefinite leave to remain like all asylum seekers. Mohammed Hayes, chairman of the Sulla Network, which represents the interpreters, said about 20 have been in the UK since 2014 and will see their permits run out next year. Mr. Hayes said some of them had contacted the Home Office asking if they could stay beyond that date and were told to apply under normal immigration rules. Several hundred interpreters, including some family members, have been allowed into the UK over the past 4 years under a relocation scheme. Stock Image. The government said last night that it wanted to reassure interpreters they can expect to stay. During his time with the UK military, Mr. Hayes was an interpreter for Captain Ed Aitken, who served with the Royal Lancers during 2 tours of Afghanistan. Captain Aitken said, "The value our interpreters gave us in such an alien environment is difficult to overstate, and the trust we put in them to work with us in often horrific conditions was extraordinary. It makes me feel ashamed that we have made life so difficult for them here. If the public knew quite how much we owed these guys, they would be appalled at the way they have been treated." Ex-Colonel Simon Diggins, who served in Afghanistan and is helping the interpreters, slammed the scandalous policy. Mohammed Hayes Walizada served in battle with the British Army from 2009 until 2013. As a battle group interpreter he deployed on the front line in dangerous towns in Helmand Province. The 27-year-old married father said that, as an unarmed civilian, his life was constantly at risk as he interpreted Taliban communications. In 2013 he was then promoted to a cultural advisor and head of local employees at Camp Bastion in the province, before being made redundant by the army. In September 2014. He qualified for the government's relocation scheme, and Mr. Hayes, who was born in Kabul, said he believed he was allowed into the UK permanently. but in September 2015 he was given a visa lasting only 5 years. He arrived in Britain in January 2016 with his wife, 20, and they live in Manchester with their 9-month-old baby Sineen, while Mr. Hayes works for a payroll firm. But, with their visa due to expire in September 2020, he contacted the Home Office to be told he would have to reapply and pay fees of £2,389 each for him and his wife, plus another £900 for his daughter. He said, "If I can't afford the fees even if I can get a visa, then I won't be able to apply and I will technically be legal. Then I have two options, either to go back to my country and risk our lives or find the money." Mr. Hayes set up the Sulla network representing interpreters in the same situation with former Captain Ed Aitken, who worked with him in Afghanistan. Captain Aitken, who met Mr. Hayes again in Manchester in 2016, said, "He told me he was so happy that his daughter was growing up and did not know the sound of the explosions in Kabul." He said, "The same scandalous hostile immigration policy that has devastated the lives of so many of the Windrush generation has also stopped us from honoring our debt to our former Afghan interpreters." Labour's defence spokesman Nia Griffith has written to Mr. Javid asking him to address the issue. Her letter said, "I am sure you would agree with me that these individuals were vital to our armed forces' work in Afghanistan and that this approach risks letting down those who put their lives on the line in support of our forces." The relocation policy excludes hundreds of interpreters who worked with British troops during some of the worst of the fighting in Helmand in the years before 2012. The Mail's betrayal of the Brave campaign has revealed how some of these interpreters have made it to the UK legally, only to be told they will be deported, a policy which led to one killing himself. The relocation policy excludes hundreds of interpreters who worked with British troops during some of the worst of the fighting in Helmand in the years before 2012. Stock image last week. Abdul Bari, 26, who translated for UK forces between 2008 and 2010, said he would be killed by the Taliban if a threat to deport him from Britain was carried out. He reached the UK in 2015 after being smuggled across the Channel, but has been turned down for asylum. The government claims it is safe for him to return to the Afghan capital Kabul. More than 178,000 people, including war heroes and politicians, have signed a petition to allow loyal interpreters into the UK. A government spokesman said, "It did not expect the interpreters to return to Afghanistan and had always been clear they could apply to settle permanently,